I mean, nobody really cares as far as the environment. They all care about the dollar. That's all they care about.
It seems mostly to be industry, maybe tighter controls on waste dumping and that type of thing.
I think we probably need to spend a lot of money, tax dollars for it, and we should. I mean, if that's what it takes, and a lot of consumers may have to bear the brunt of that.
We have to learn not to waste our resources in the first place. But if we do, as we do, we have to recycle them and reuse them again and again.
We're just going to choke on our own gases and die.
It's too many cars. It's not enough bikes. Get a bike.
Every little group has its own favorite issue, or their own favorite thing. And we simply know that we can't do everything all at once. We know that. Everybody knows that. But deciding what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it, so that we don't just paralyze ourselves. Because trying to do everything at the same time paralyzes the whole effort. That, to me, is the single most difficult issue. We know we have to do it. We don't know how.
The single most important issue that we see is our responsibility to our environment, to future generations, and then along with that would be the cost associated with it. What are people willing to pay in order to clean up the problem that we have today?
For most companies, the most important issue in environmental control or pollution control is dollars and cents. The companies want to spend as little as possible because you're spending money which is not producing any revenue.
I think it is still quite a question as to whether or not we will preserve the planet as it has been preserved. I don't have to point out what the population is predicted to be in the next decade or two, and the ability of society as a whole to feed itself, clothe itself, etc., without destroying the environment is going to be a very, very hard issue to manage for society as a whole.
I think the general perception of the public is that there's a green slime and liquid oozing out all over the place. There's rats, there's just garbage uncovered, strewn all over. And this is the impression that probably 98% of the people have. And it's misinformation, ignorance on their part, because we wouldn't be able to operate here if it was like that. The EPA and this particular site are out here 2 to 3 times a month. They monitor it closely. We have a local watchdog group that lets us know if there's a problem. And it's just, it's not like it is on TV. You know, generally people think the worst, and that's not the case.
The homeowner, they don't really think of where their garbage is going. They set it out at the curb, and basically the garbage man picks it up on whatever day is their day, and where it goes from there, they don't care about. As long as that garbage man picks it up, that's all they worry about.
We throw a lot of waste away, volume, and we've got to have a place to go with it. With no new landfills being sited in a lot of areas, we're going to be to a position where the current landfills will be closed with no other places to go with our solid waste, and we're going to have a major garbage and trash problem.
You know, first of all, we keep on hearing that we're running out of landfills, and then we're hearing that the requirements for landfills are becoming more and more stringent. Well, the people making up the landfill requirements, you know, are they not sensitive to the idea that we are running out of landfill areas? It's sort of like what we have, they're regulating even more, and they're not looking at sort of a big picture, and what they're doing is they're just sort of narrowly sighting in on one thing.
Now, the solution, I don't know. There again, they say incineration is the solution. Well, you have people that are against that. You have people that are against the solid waste disposal like we're doing it now. But the wind-up is, no matter if you burn it or landfill it, ultimately it's got to go somewhere. It's just not going to disappear, and the people are going to have to come to grips. It's going to have to be dealt with. And of course, the more sophisticated, whether it's incineration or landfilling it, the more we try to build on what we have now to make it better so it is more environmentally safe, the consumer is ultimately going to pay for it. Prices are going to go up.
We're always going to produce waste. Even the people that don't want landfills or incinerators still put their garbage out on a weekly basis. They still put that can at the curb. If we're going to solve the pollution problem, people have to be part of that process, and recycling is definitely the direction to head.
The recycling trend is a direct impact from environmental regulation.
I made a statement 2 years ago, and everybody laughed at me that we could recycle 100% of our waste. And I still stand behind that statement. I think most of the studies that have been done show that the first 25 to 30% can be done at a reasonable expense. After that point, it gets extremely expensive to get into recycling more waste. The key element with recycling is homeowners have to understand that through their purchasing habits, if they buy things that can be recycled, that increases the amount of their garbage we can recycle. They can't be looking for us to look at their waste stream and say, okay, you keep buying what you are, and we will recycle what you put out. What they have to do is go into the store and say, I'm going to buy this product because it's in a container that can be recycled.
Well, I believe that the best thing that we have to try to do is to try to restructure the way that we package our food somehow, and package our goods, to somehow reuse that material. Instead of being a throwaway society, try to get back to where we're a reusable society.
The consumer himself is going to have to kind of bite the bullet here, and they're going to have to determine, they're going to have to make a real effort to do this. We're not generating the waste out here. It's being brought to us, and of course we're getting paid to do it, but we try to handle it in the most efficient and effective method we can. But the public themselves, whether it's through recycling or repackaging or just, they're going to have to change their whole outlook on just taking and throwing stuff in a can, and then that's the end of it. And then it's going to be, the public itself is going to have to come to grips that we're going to have to take and deal with this before it gets into the garbage truck and before it gets to the curb.
In the recycling area, we've made these rules and regulations to meet these percentages by government to take out of the waste stream, which is a good idea. But our problem we're running into, at least even in the initial stages, is that we've got the recyclables coming out of the waste stream, but the markets are not there for the recyclables. The markets are not there to buy the recyclables. So we're becoming stockpiled, similar to salvage yards. I mean, they're being stockpiled and no markets to move the product once they're taken out of the waste stream.
In the political climate today, if recycling is viewed as a negative for a politician, there's no way they're going to pass it because they won't get reelected then. If they view it as a positive, if homeowners come forward and say, we want recycling, it's a positive thing for them, and they'll start it tomorrow because they know that it's necessary.
It seems that everybody is always trying to build on making things more strict and the laws more stringent, and I think that we could probably get to the point where there's so much paperwork and so much different legislation and rules that I don't know if there's one man smart enough to know it all.
When decisions are made, regulatory decisions and legislative decisions, it is very difficult for those who are making those decisions or recommendations to decide anything except the most restrictive solution. How clean is clean, for example, in Superfund sites? The agency people have no incentive to say, well, maybe we shouldn't try to clean it up to pristine conditions because it's been an industrial area for 150 years. But they're afraid to do that because they're afraid they'll be criticized by environmental groups or others if they haven't gone to the most restrictive, the most clean position. I think there's an increasing understanding in the country that we have to bring a better balance to those decisions. But there hasn't been an understanding of how you go about getting those decisions made.
The regulations are being made by younger people coming directly out of college where they don't have the expertise or experience to really, for them to be putting down rules and regulations. There's a problem. I see this, the older people are retiring that's been in the industry for a while. The younger generations are basically going by book knowledge, not practical experience. Therefore, some of the rules and regulations that are being put down are not practical. They're very costly and very, and some of them not practical at all.
I think we need more effective regulations when it comes to the government regulations. I think we need to have maybe, an intent purpose. So in other words, the interpretation of the regulation is left pretty much to the individual companies, but the intent, is there.
The problem with legislation is you're forcing people to do something. People talk about packaging. We should go after manufacturers through legislation and limit their packaging. We can do that as consumers. If we look at a packaged product and say we're not going to buy that product because of the packaging, the manufacturer will change it. We don't need legislation to do that. I would say the key question with that is, will people be educated fast enough and catch on fast enough to keep up with the pace of the problem that's developing?
Well, I think society is positioned to either save ourselves or go down the tube, if you will.
Technology and people created the problem, and it's going to take technology and people to solve the problem. But we have to identify what the problems are.
No, I think if we rely on the government, I don't think they're going to be our solution. They may be the impetus for us to start this, but I think it's got to be self-driven. Businesses have to be self-driven in this direction.
I think we as a society are better positioned right now to begin to really work together on this area than we ever were before. The 90s are really the first decade of environmental awareness and sensitivity.
We have to determine what our responsibility is, what the cost is, and where the two meet. How much are we willing to pay to clean up this problem? We've created it. We have to clean it up.